and welcome back to Leaders Fuel Daily Podcast. This is episode number 12, and I'm so glad to be here with Shannon Few, and she's going to tell us all about her current company in a few moments. I love your company, Shannon.
Thank you,
I
Rick.
think it's a great company, and we were talking about this a little bit ago, and part of what we were saying is your company is the kind of company that has the potential to go pretty big. It could be a quite large company because it is a great niche. It fulfills a need that is not going away and one that all of us are somehow linked to. We're either in need of what you do now, or we will be at some point, or we know someone who does. So we're going to hear all about that. But what I really want to talk about, something that I also think that many people who are going to see this can relate to, is this whole idea of how big should a company be, and how do you decide? You're you have such a great entrepreneurial story, and I would love to hear about that. So uh, let's just start with that. Talk about just some of the things as an entrepreneur that your journey as an entrepreneur that led to where you are now, and some of those experiences. So,
Sure.
yeah,
Absolutely. Thanks, Rick. And thank you
yeah,
so much for having me. This is super exciting for us. So I guess, my story kind of starts back in my teens. There's, the entrepreneurial spirit is certainly in my blood. So my mom has owned multiple businesses her entire life. And so she definitely is the person who has instilled kind of that spirit and I would say work ethic in
yes,
me.
yes.
So, kind of a funny story. I pretty much grew up behind a bar.
Okay,
My
yeah.
parents owned a restaurant for about 16 years.
Hmm.
And, I literally held every position, that's available in a restaurant other than the kitchen stuff. I did everything kind of front of house. So
Yes,
from hostessing and waitressing and bartending and managing and all of those fun things. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons
I
throughout
bet
that
you
time,
did. Yeah.
so
Yeah, well, by the way, do you consider yourself a mixologist? Like, could you do that?
this is before those mixology days.
You weren't like 13 throwing the bottle, spinning around and doing all that, were you? Okay,
Not really. Hey, we had a lot of good times.
I
I will
bet.
say that. But
I
um,
bet.
it was kind of before that whole mixology trend.
Okay, okay.
I'm 41, so
Yes, yeah.
this is back in the 90s. I think that kind of started maybe more like early 2000s.
But you did learn some valuable skills that you can still use today, and a lot of great stuff,
I
obviously.
did
And
no.
so,
I've honestly, I've taken the skills that I learned waitressing and bartending and
mm,
working in a restaurant literally through my whole career.
mm,
So my career now spans just about 20 years,
mm,
and I have been in sales
okay.
and in management and executive roles throughout my career. And I will tell you that just the interpersonal skills
Mm,
and how to relate to people, how to help people. Like honestly, bartenders sometimes become counselors
yeah,
quite a bit,
yeah.
as you can probably imagine. But if you really care about your customers, you want to help them out. And so that was, it was like a family back then. We had just an awesome restaurant where it was kind of like Cheers, where everybody knew
Everybody
everybody
knows your name.
before.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. Like, I definitely missed those days. It was a lot of hours and a lot of hard work.
Hmm.
And certainly there's a lot of challenges in the restaurant business, just in terms of,
Sure.
employees and those
Hmm.
kinds of things. But it was a really great time and a great place to learn just some wonderful skills that I've really truly carried through my career.
So then, post restaurant days and bar days, what were some other things that you've been involved in?
Sure. So my first real job out of
Hmm.
college, and this was actually while I was getting my MBA. So I started working for a company called Publishing,
Hmm.
and that organization had magazines and events, all in the connected home space, which most people kind of now know as the smart home space.
Sure.
This is the early days of, excuse me, home automation and, the home theater kind of craze, audio,
Okay.
that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So I was in sales. I sold ad space and I sold event space and sponsorships.
Hmm.
And we grew. I've always had, I'm kind of drawn to launching new products or
Sure.
events or kinds
Hmm.
of things. And so we had some really, really fun times there where we grew the trade shows and the magazines very, very quickly. It was just the right time in the industry where things were really taking off.
Hmm.
So I was a part of that, and that was super exciting. And then I did a couple other things, and then I was kind of recruited back to launch a security trade show in
Okay.
the security space, which was called the Electronic Security Expo. And that was kind of my first real focus on the security channel. And so if you think of physical security, so burglar alarms, fire alarms, access control systems, video surveillance, that's really the space that we played in. And then that really kind of parlayed into a role where I took a VP of sales and marketing position at the Electronic Security Association. And that's a national trade association for folks that are installing security systems, both
Okay.
residential and commercial. And so that was a really great role for me, where I had my hand in a lot. I ran our events, I ran our magazines, I ran all of our public relations and kind of special projects. So we had a
Mm-hmm.
whole workforce development
Mm-hmm.
initiative where we were really trying to recruit and retain folks in our industry, because there's
Mm-hmm.
a big skills and labor gap in the security space. So I was very involved in that. We launched a mentorship program, which was incredibly fulfilling, that I love. And my husband actually
Yes.
does a lot of the mentoring work in that space today, which is really great. But you just learned a lot through that process in terms of the mentorship side, because going into it, a lot of us, knew the mentees would be gaining so much from the mentors, but I'll tell you that the mentors started reporting very quickly how much they were learning.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was really, really interesting to
Mm-hmm.
see.
Mm-hmm.
It was just great because we were pairing people from across the country. So, a mentee might be from Massachusetts and they might be paired with somebody from, Nevada or Colorado or something. So they're not
Sure.
competing in the same space. So they were very willing to share that knowledge and experience that
Mm-hmm.
they were going through, because they're all going through similar things and they were
Yes.
helping one another just tremendously. So that
Mm-hmm.
was really, really exciting. So my hands have definitely been in a lot throughout my career.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Absolutely.
but that's definitely kind of a glimpse into my background.
Yeah. Well, and what I love is that with the security thing is that there was a very heavy emphasis on growing the business, but also growing people from the inside out, which is, that's speaking my language, of course, is, and that whole idea of bringing, people along, and, your business is only going to grow as much as you do. And
Right.
all of those conversations had to be immensely valuable to the people in those businesses, and to be able to have someone to have a time and space to share that. But all of that also means a lot of work, doesn't it? There's a
Yes.
tremendous amount of energy and attention and time that needs to be put into that to make all of that go. I'm sure you had a lot of moments and days and probably seasons where you felt like you were keeping a lot of plates spinning, or
Yes.
sometimes I've heard someone say you feel like you're in a bathtub full of ping pong balls and you're trying to keep all the ping pong balls underwater.
Yeah.
Uh,
Very hard to
you
do.
probably had some times like that. And then, so then at what point did you start the business that you're in now?
So my husband actually, he was really the one who started the business initially. So in 2017, he had worked for Time Warner Cable, which was
Hmm.
acquired by Charter Communications.
Hmm.
They were relocating folks out to Denver, and he was not interested in relocating. So he ended up taking a severance package, which was very generous and
Hmm.
really kind of gave us the opportunity to say, okay, what do we want to do when we grow up?
There you go.
And so what he started a consulting business, but we also started LuciLife.
Hmm.
And at the time, and this kind of really ties in to growing your business in line with your goals and how fast
Yes.
you scale. So
Yeah.
at the time, I was also still working full time for another company as well,
Hmm.
and I still do that today.
Yes.
But uh, the consulting side, excuse me, of my husband's business took off.
Hmm.
So Lucy Life just kind of grew slowly, and we really didn't put as much attention or effort into it as we honestly wanted to,
Hmm.
just because we had so much going on professionally and personally.
Sure. Right.
We had our son in 2017 as well, so
Hmm.
it was just a busy, busy time. And then last year, so in 2020, we started getting just a lot more incoming inquiries and folks
Yes.
saying, hey, what are you up to? What are you doing? How's LuciLife doing? And it was great. The business was just kind of putting along.
Yeah.
Weren't investing a bit. They did at the very beginning, and there were some valuable lessons there that we can talk about, but
Yes.
it did not pay off. But we started getting interest, and we said, this is truly the time that we need to really dive into this, because there is such a need, as you said, Rick, at the very beginning. The
Yeah.
demand for what we do is exploding
Yes.
as our baby boomer population continues to age, and more folks find themselves living alone or working with strangers and those kinds of things. And so
Sure.
that's really kind of the catalyst. And quite frankly, as you know, I got involved in some local networking groups here, and that has been hugely powerful for our business, because we made the decision that we really want to grow. We have customers all over the country still to this day, and we'll still continue to grow that. But
Yes.
to be able to have those really close-knit relationships that are based locally is awesome. And
Yeah.
we can build a really strong business, quite frankly, right here in Greenville.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so that's really what we made a decision to do.
Well, and so let's talk about that a little bit. So I've I hear a lot of people using this term work-life balance. And I'm sure that there's something of that in there for you. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you the question this way. Why with a company that the need is pretty universal and could be national, there are companies like yours that are nationally known. We could all say their slogans from memory. We've been so conditioned with them. So what about that? What would be the reasons why you wouldn't want to take what you're doing and just blast it out there nationwide? Talk about that.
Absolutely. So one thing that I think really differentiates us is our customer experience. So when
Yeah.
you talk about some of those really well-known national brands out there, they don't honestly have a great customer experience. I've actually kind of secret shopped it and gone through them myself just to have a closer understanding of
Sure.
exactly
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
going on in the space.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that, especially in the space that we're in, we're taking care of people, right? So we
Yes.
are somebody's lifeline. And we are the ones on the other end of the line when they need help the most.
Yes.
And so it's a very serious situation typically when somebody has a real alarm that they need us to respond to and get them help. And so that's why we're in this business. We're in this business to help people. We're not in this business just to sell something or just to
Yeah.
harass people into buying something. And that's
Right.
unfortunately the experience that a lot of people do have.
Sure.
The other big reason we don't want to get into that level in the industry is because there's so much marketing and overhead costs that now comes when you scale to that particular size.
Sure.
Um, from certainly a support perspective, but also just in general, it's a really expensive space to market in,
Yes.
and to actually convert, whether that's online or TV commercials, converting those leads into sales is a very expensive process.
Yes.
Because it's such a personal buy, quite
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
And once you have those costs, you're now forced to charge a lot more to your end customer.
Yeah.
And that is not something we're interested in. We are dramatically less expensive. And I
Yes.
don't lead with that because that's not something, we're not about just, undercutting or the price,
Sure.
but we
Right.
really want to make our solution affordable to as many people as possible.
Yes.
And quite frankly, the other solutions get so expensive that a lot of, average folks or people on fixed incomes really can't add that into their budget because it's just too exorbitant for them.
And then they don't get the value of what they wanted it for in the first place. And by the way, I know this because of other conversations that I've had with you and actually having talked with your husband. And that is that now behind what you sell, what the customer has, you have all the technology and all the capability in place to serve people to the same degree that any national company would. So what I'm saying is that, a lot of people are building a business and what they're trying to do is to put the kind of infrastructure in place that would facilitate that kind of growth.
Mhm.
You have that. And so what I love about this is that you've made an incredibly conscious decision that, hey, look, even though we have this capability, just because we can do this doesn't mean that we should do this.
Right.
And we don't frankly want to do this. And so I'm reading my current book right now is called The Sacred Pace.
Mm.
Wonderful book, and when I read a book, I actually to full I don't read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of books, but I engage with content several times over. And so I'm on probably my second go around with a lot of the content because I like to listen and go back and listen again and listen again. And then I'll go back and then I'll start taking notes on what it is. Because for me, information doesn't change us. I could listen to a lot of books. I could read a lot of books and I could say, brag to everyone, humble brag about all the books I've read. It's what do we do with the information that matters. And there's so much in this book that really relates to what you were sharing. In fact, you
Mm.
said you did this. I didn't tell you this before, but you said you actually had written the word pace down right before
I
we talked
did,
in your
yeah.
journal, right?
Exactly. So, a big turning point, as I was kind of starting to mention, was just refocusing on what's really important in life. And for
Yeah.
me, that is, that work-life balance and slowing down that pace.
Mm-hmm.
In my previous careers, I was flying all over the country. I had every frequent flyer status you can think of,
Yeah.
all of the hotel points. I could
Yes.
travel the world on all my points and miles and all of that. And you get very caught up into that
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
you're in that
There is
world.
an energy that goes with that, isn't there? There's a
There
certain
is,
kind.
I
Yeah.
was like, I'm
Yeah.
platinum. I walk through every,
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't, I'm not in the back of the bus. I'm upgraded.
Yes.
All of those things, and you get very in that gets ingrained kind of, you're in
Yeah.
that culture and
Yeah.
you feed off of that. And that's great. But I
Yeah.
will tell you, I don't have status anymore. I
Yeah.
don't care.
You don't need the status.
No,
Yeah.
my status is running these businesses, but being a mom and a
Is
wife.
it?
And
Yes.
and that is so much more important to me today than it ever was in the past.
Yeah.
And I honestly think that children they changed me quite a bit.
They do. I think that there's something biological. I think as soon as your first child is born, like some kind of chemical washes over your brain and it makes you a little bit insane for the rest of
Yeah,
your life.
it
Not
does.
in all good ways, meaning that, uh,
I'm actually going to show you something
okay, yes.
exactly to that. So this is a picture of my son and I.
Oh,
I literally, so this is when I was still addicted to that crazy work world.
yes, yes.
And I decided he was about 4 months old, and there was a big industry trade show in the security space. And I was like, I really can't miss it. I got to go. And I flew out there and I had to present on a panel and I had a few important meetings. And then I took the red eye home. And this was when I got home. I couldn't wait to cuddle with him. And so this
Oh,
picture actually means quite a bit because
I bet.
I'll tell you after that, none of that's happened. Like I don't want to jump on a plane. Like
No.
that's not as important as this.
Yes.
And so
Here,
so
hold
that
that up. Hold that up to your camera one more time. I want to get a good shot of that. Let's see.
that little
There
smile,
you go.
so
Yeah.
happy.
You,
Mama was home.
that's
And I
great.
wasn't even, I think I was gone for, it was something ridiculous. It was like 28 hours or something silly.
Yes.
But and I went all the way to Vegas and back and did those presentations and whatever. I was like,
Yeah.
I just went home.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, it does change your perspective for sure in all good ways, and I'm glad for that. And I think a person doesn't have to be a parent to understand. And
Totally.
I do understand the term work-life balance. But when I came upon this other idea, it seems more fitting to me, and that's the idea of harmony. In other words, you're not actually finding balance exactly because if you had balance, you wouldn't move because then something would be out of balance. It's more about harmony, and I think it's more in harmony of your values
Yes.
and what you stand for. I have a theory that when businesses start, at first when they're starting, they're just in survival mode. Some scale up quickly and some take a long time of plodding along to get there. But eventually, you're not really in business to sell your products or services. You're in business to perpetuate your values in the world. I
Mm.
mean, to me, that's part of what the entrepreneur's dream is. But part of what it means to be an entrepreneur is yes, I have a dream and I want to build something. But when it gets down to it, the entrepreneurial journey is a tremendous way for people to get to know themselves like they've never known themselves before, if they'll take the time to do it. And for that to come out through their company and through their employees, and for a company to really, it takes time for a company to really get to know itself, I think.
I think you're right.
It's, again, when you're in survival mode, your mind's not on these things, but there's a process that's in place that if you persist and if you
Mhm.
continue to move along and you're not one of the, statistically of the millions of businesses that start this year, many of them won't be around in 5 years, and in 10 years, hardly any of them, about 20% will be there.
Right.
But if you persist, I think eventually what happens is it's more there's no real fulfillment in just selling a product or a service. Now, those things are always great. I'm not talking about not providing great service at all. I'm saying the purposefulness of all of it.
Mhm.
And when it gets down to it, it's your values that you're moving into the world, and your products and your services give you the opportunity to do that. And and that's the better benefit,
Mhm.
because what you're talking about is, again, yeah, you could sell a million more of these, but can you serve a million more people?
Mhm.
Can you really add the value, your values of that great experience and that security and that small localized thing, the ability to be able to really have a relational type, you know, uh, kind of transactional and relational type of relationship there. um, can you do that on a large scale? And your answer is no. And
You can
so,
do it. I just don't think you can do it as effectively.
not the
And
same way.
it's not the same. And, for us, we really want this business to become a legacy, right?
Yeah,
So we want to pass this on to our children if they want it,
sure.
um,
Yeah,
or for it to be, a really nice kind of retirement plan for us ultimately, or
right.
eventually if
Exactly.
we didn't want it.
Yeah,
But, I actually think that one of them out of four of them will probably want it, or maybe all.
yes, yeah,
But because it really is so meaningful and so fulfilling, and that's really what it comes down to, is we're literally saving people's lives
yeah,
sometimes.
absolutely.
And that's really at the heart of what we're all
Yeah,
about and what we're
yeah.
doing.
Well, it's the things that you said right there. That's actually why I built the Leaders Fuel system, is to, the Leaders Fuel system is the framework that frames the work that a company does. And in among other things, what it gives a company the opportunity to do, a person who starts a company, is to eventually rise above their business and to create a legacy with their business. And so we're not here to talk about that, but it's just that that's really, for me, what was at the heart of this. And I put values into the whole thing. Everything is about your values. But let's talk. There's one other thing, but I want to hear all about your company, and I want people to know about it. We're going to make sure that people have a way to get in touch with you and connect. But there was one other part of what you said which we really didn't delve into, and let's talk about that a little bit. Is, when you go big, you were talking to me earlier. A lot of companies can get out there and go big fast,
Mhm.
but something changes, and then all of a sudden you've accumulated not just income, you've accumulated all kinds of expenses that you never had. And if you stop and look at your business from a 30,000-foot view, frankly, you could go, we don't need this. We,
Mhm.
we don't need all of this to do what we intended to do with this.
Right.
And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves. And so just talk about your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that try to get into this business either don't have the right infrastructure in place initially, or know
Mhm.
how to build that infrastructure in a smart way. And one thing that a lot of companies find themselves getting into trouble is managing cash flow, especially in this business,
Mhm.
because it is a subscription based business.
Yes.
It's also why you'll see a lot of those national brands charging equipment fees,
Mhm.
because without that, they are so cash flow negative in the early days of acquiring a customer that
Yeah.
it's bleeding cash and money out of their business that they
Mhm.
cannot continue to operate. So a lot of companies find themselves in pretty dire, predicaments, quite frankly,
Yeah.
where they can't keep up, and they don't have the funds to bring in the equipment to continue to sell to more customers. And so that's another reason we really want to be smart about how we grow, because we
Absolutely.
don't need to bring on hundreds of customers a month.
Yeah.
If I bring on 10 or 20 or 30 or something like that, that is such a better pace, as you were talking
Yes.
about,
Hmm.
so that we can provide that full customer experience, make sure that that customer is completely set up and comfortable with what we're providing to them from the very
Hmm.
beginning on day one. And then we carry that through the lifetime of that customer. Instead of trying to have the infrastructure and the teams and the people that you would need to bring on hundreds or thousands of people a
There
month.
you go. Yeah.
We can build a very, very big, good size business.
Yeah.
Um, and we're also, I think for us, it's a little bit unique because we're not living off of this
Right.
business.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of also the beauty of what we're doing, is because we're not living off of this business, it's not just about a hard sell. It's
Yes.
about serving somebody in their time of need when the time is right. Because
Right.
one thing I've learned through this process is it truly is all about timing.
Yeah.
What I would love to be able to do and communicate out to people is, don't wait until something bad happens to call us. Like, start thinking a little earlier,
Hmm.
because we want to be able to be there when something does happen. And
Yes.
we had someone in our networking group who literally just got out ahead of that, which I was so happy about. We got his dad set up with us, and
Hmm.
literally 2 weeks later, he needed us right away, and he's used us 4 times since
Wow.
September.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he has our system so that we could be there and get him the help that he needs. But that's just a good example of why we want the pace to be manageable and not
Yes.
crazy. We don't want to build these huge teams of people.
Yeah.
We want to just be simple and
Yes.
a really positive process for our customers.
Yes. And by the way, you can still build a business where it does not only sustain your family, but other families. And again, eventually it can sustain itself and still, provide some income and some, ownership residuals to you.
Right.
So, but not lose the essence of it, not lose the missional part of it, and
Right.
everything that you started to do it for in the first place. So
Exactly.
both that's the harmony part of it. That's where at the right pace you can do it that way. And so I really appreciate that. Okay, well, go ahead.
The only
Uh,
thing I was just going to add is,
no,
because our customers build over time, like, we don't just sell somebody and then never talk to them again, right? So
yeah.
we have customers for years. And so
Mhm.
when you think of it that way, somebody that we get on board with us in 2020, hopefully we're still working with in 2025. And
Yes.
so that we're just adding to a very manageable base that we're continuing to build.
Yes.
And that's really where what you were just talking about. Now we've really built
Hmm.
the business that can not only sustain itself, but certainly we could live off of, our children can inherit and take over eventually, and those kinds of things as well. So
Perfect.
that's exactly what we're trying to build.
Well, we've teased this out enough. So tell
Right.
us about your business now. What I mentioned the name of it, and you mentioned the name of it, LuciLife. But tell us what do people need to know about your business and about what you do. And again, we'll make sure that anyone who's paying attention to this and comes upon it, they have a way to get in touch with you through this. So tell us all about that.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rick. So yes, the name of the business is LuciLife, and what we provide, there's two sides to our business. One
Hmm.
is the medical alert monitoring side. So as you mentioned, everybody kind of knows the I've fallen
Yes.
mantras out there,
Yes.
and I kind of like to say we provide sort of the next generation of that.
Hmm.
We have a really great pendant that we provide to our senior customers, that also comes with an app for caretakers. So caretakers can actually look in and see, okay, is mom or dad or whoever it is, where they're supposed to be, what's the battery life on their pendant.
Yeah.
That pendant is also made here right in the USA in Texas,
Love
which
that.
is really great for us.
Yes.
Certainly it helps from a supply chain perspective, but
Hmm.
also just, being able to support a US based business is really exciting for us too. Uh, and so we really, really love to provide that level of service to our customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whenever somebody needs us, whether that's
Yes.
2 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock in the afternoon. When they push their pendant, which looks like this, they literally
Okay.
press a button, they're
Yes.
talking to our operator. So it's a
Okay.
full two-way conversation.
Hmm.
These are also totally independent devices. So there's a lot of products out there that I've kind of stumbled across over the last year that have to be paired with a cell phone, which means they have to be like
Okay. Yes.
with a cell phone.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not what we do. These all communicate just totally independently
Hmm.
off of a 4G LTE network. So
Okay.
wherever cell signal, they're going to work. Um, and they're also built with GPS tracking capabilities. So especially once we start to work a lot with folks that are having either memory challenges,
Hmm. Hmm.
early onset Alzheimer's, those kinds of things, wandering can become a problem where they can get
Absolutely.
oriented. And honestly, we didn't even talk about it, but that's why we founded this business
Hmm.
initially. My
Hmm.
husband's grandfather had Alzheimer's, and he would get up in the middle of the night every night and take his dog for a walk. The dog
Hmm.
had passed years before that. And my husband's grandmother would get up with him and walk with him to make sure he got home safely. Tragically, one night she didn't hear him get up,
Mm.
and he went out and got lost, and they couldn't find him. They
Mm.
found him 2 weeks later. He had passed away. It was in New
Oh.
Jersey, in the cold. It was November.
Mm.
Um, and he died. And so we never want another family to have to go through that because
Yes.
it can be preventable.
Absolutely.
They have to, of course, be wearing their pendants so that we can help. But we've found that if it's built into their routines, they'll absolutely wear it, and so we can be that lifeline for them. So even if they don't know that they're lost, we can still find them. So
Hmm.
if a loved one says they're not where they're supposed to be or they're missing, we're able to track them down. And I'll tell you, over the weekend on Saturday, we got a call from a customer who said,
Hmm.
"Mom's not responding to me. She's not answering the phone.
Yes.
I've been trying her for 2 days. Is there anything you can do?" And we said, "Sure." So we called the device
Yes.
and checked in, and she was fine. She's like, "Yeah, I'm great. I'm all set." So don't know why she wasn't calling her daughter back, but she confirmed she was safe.
Yeah. You don't do family counseling, but you do help.
That's right.
You can help find mom.
We do a lot of things.
Yes. You can take them up to that point. Yes.
Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
that's the medical alert side. There's also fall detection. I didn't mention, but that's built into our pendants too. So if somebody falls,
Yeah.
that's going to trigger an alarm, and we're going to make sure that somebody's okay or get them the help that they need.
Yeah, nice.
Yes. And then so the other side of our business is more of the personal protection
Okay.
pendant, panic button. A lot
Hmm.
of people like to relate it to.
Hmm.
So we're working with a lot of people that work either alone or with strangers, like realtors is a really great
Oh,
example.
absolutely.
So they're trying to build their businesses and they're marketing themselves all over the place, but unfortunately, sometimes that can make them a target. And so realtors often find themselves in a pretty dangerous situation. In fact,
Sure.
there's some pretty scary statistics from the National Association of Realtors that shows that it's basically like 1 in 3 realtors every
Hmm.
single year has felt that they were actually in danger.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and there's some very awful stories where they've actually been, attacked or murdered
Sure. Yeah.
in certain cases. And so we really want to be kind of that lifeline. It looks like a key fob.
Hmm.
It's not like an obvious thing that if somebody has bad intentions, the first thing they're going to do is get rid of your cell phone.
Yeah.
And cell phones are not effective in an emergency, which is, I kind of like to draw this analogy. There's a reason police officers have a radio right on their shoulder. With one press of a button, they're talking to their dispatcher.
Connected. Yeah.
They're not calling on a cell phone for backup. There's a
Right.
reason for that.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what we're doing for your average person. So whether that's somebody who might work late at night and might not feel safe walking alone in a dark parking lot,
Hmm.
or somebody who's working with people that they don't know, home service-based companies, kind of you name it.
Sure. Absolutely.
The other side is athletes. So if you're running, walking, hiking, there's some, even just right here in Greenville, we have some beautiful places to hike and run and bike and walk.
Hmm.
But sometimes they go through not so safe areas. And
Sure.
so we really can help provide just that extra safety net and peace of mind, knowing that, hey, if something is wrong, I can hit this button and I'm talking to an agent who can send me the police. Or if I fell off my bike and hurt my leg or my arm and I can't get back on my bike, they can send me an ambulance and get me the help, or call somebody on my emergency call to contact list to come get me. So that's what we do at LuciLife. We have kind of the 2 different pendants that we offer to the
Hmm.
different markets, and we're really just trying to help people stay safe.
That's what a great business to be in, and to be able to provide that, and that has to be fulfilling when you know that you've made the difference in
It really
situations like
It
that.
really had people, just a lot of people falling recently,
Hmm. Hmm.
and they literally can't get up. Like they,
Yeah.
they need that help. And so to be that lifeline to get the paramedics or the fire department to them right away,
Yes.
it's incredibly helpful. Like we had one customer calls and say, "Thank you so much. It worked perfectly for my dad. He fell and the fire department was there in, 4 minutes." So thankfully he lived very close to a fire department. I can't say that they're always going to be there in 4 minutes.
Sure, sure, sure.
But we dispatch them and, we get them the help as fast as possible. So,
Well, there's a couple of different aspects too about what you're providing. Well, so one thought I had was it's kind of like buying an insurance policy in that, you hope that you never need this, but in the
mhm,
eventuality or in the, event that you would need it, then you have it. Now, the difference is you're not like an agent of something that then you're okay, cash this in. You're still connected. I mean, that's again, this is a very relational thing
it is.
that your company is involved in. And then the other aspect, and I'm sure I'm missing things that this, but the independence of this, because
Mhm.
you know, I just is something that I kind of relate this to is our family was fortunate to get involved with. Where we live, there's an organization that goes to homes and they build ramps
Mm,
for people that because every it's like this idea. Not every kid that finishes high school needs to go directly to college. And
right.
not every senior who is becoming more diminished in their capacities needs to go to an other care place.
That's right.
And more people are opting for trying to stay in their home longer and maintain that independence.
Yes.
And so this is a part of that independence equation to me, if I as I see it.
100%. One of our kind of, slogans, so to speak, is protecting families and enabling independence, because that's exactly what we're doing. We're allowing people who want to stay in their homes independently
Hmm.
longer. And sadly, as folks age, sometimes one spouse dies and now somebody's left alone, but they don't
Hmm.
want to leave. They really don't.
Yeah.
I have, there's just in the last couple of months, we've signed up a couple customers. One woman is 93 years old and lives out in the farmhouse that she was born in. And she's got this gorgeous, huge home. Certainly, she doesn't need this big home, but that's her home, and she
Yeah,
doesn't want.
sure. Yeah.
Um, the other piece to that too is, quite frankly, sometimes they can't afford to go into an assisted living
There you
place
go.
or something else that they would feel comfortable in, because the cost can be too overwhelming for them, especially if they're on a fixed income at that point.
For sure.
So, to spend 34.95 a month with us
Hmm.
is a lot more palatable, more affordable, easier, but then they have that safety net and that peace of mind
Yeah. Yeah.
to be able, instead of spending, who knows how much it costs. It's thousands and thousands of dollars
Sure. Absolutely.
to have.
Right. And of course, peace of mind, not just for the individual who's staying in their home, but all their family members and their adult children who are in that now caretaker role in some capacity. And so,
Yeah. Yes. And we
yeah.
have a lot of people, it's interesting. We often hear first from the caretakers.
Hmm.
They'll call us asking, like, tell me more about what you offer and how
Hmm.
does it work? And because they're the ones that are really worried. A lot of times it's not the our actual customer who reaches out sometimes, because they might think that they're fine, they don't need it, or they don't even know about it.
Hmm.
And that conversation, I always try to counsel our caretaker customers,
Hmm.
where it's, don't make this about, like, you fell and now you have to have this, or you can't walk to the mailbox anymore, you have to have this. It's
Yes.
about, hey, now you have this, you can go to the mailbox still.
Right.
It's a totally
Yes.
different conversation.
Absolutely. It's not a punitive device. It is absolutely there for freedom.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
hey, mom, if you still want to go to the grocery store, now you can.
Now you
Whereas
have it.
you might, because the other thing that we do here too is sometimes, like, our customers actually stop doing things that they love
Yes.
because they get scared themselves.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
did have a fall, or they just don't feel as
Hmm.
steady on their feet, or there could be another medical condition that they're really struggling with as well.
Yes.
It just makes them feel not as independent or safe to go out. Whereas this, okay, well, if something happens, now you have help.
There you
So
go. What a great, yeah. And I'm sure there's so many other values about this. This is, again, I love your company. I think it's such a great thing. I'm so glad to be getting to know you in this way and be connected. We got connected first through a business networking group, but, I just really appreciate what you do. And I appreciate your words and your thoughts about building a business at a pace that's sustainable and that is in harmony or in balance with your family and
Mhm.
what you really want to do. And that certainly is music to my ears.
Well,
I
and
like
Rick,
that.
thank you for everything you're doing. You are empowering so many entrepreneurs and really helping us all just get on the right track and
Mm,
make sure that, we're looking past just the trees, right? Because sometimes
sure. Yeah.
when we're in the weeds, it's hard to see and really have that strategic plan in place. So thank you for all that you're doing too. I'm so fortunate that we got connected.
Yeah. Well, it is my absolute privilege. I love it. And, I just want look for opportunities to help more people all the time. So I appreciate you saying that very much. Well, uh, we will just say goodbye to everyone that's listening in. Thanks to everyone. And I just want to say for those that are still listening to this or watching this, remember, engage with this because you probably have some insights that didn't occur to us in the moment of this conversation. So always want people to engage it. We're not trying to come and be the gurus coming off the mountain here. This topic that we talked about here is one that I am certain that many people have a lot of insight to and input. So I hope that people will. So
Love
Shannon,
that. I love that
yeah,
too.
well, thank you for very much, and we'll say goodbye for now.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks.